Think we're in live?
Should be. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Oscar. This is my colleague, Justus. Welcome to another episode of Baltics Go Mobile. And today we're going to talk about mobile conversions and cross-device tracking. So if you have any questions throughout this webinar, just type them in the Q&A box. You should be able to see it next to your Hangout screen. Hopefully there will be some questions, and then we'll walk you through this. So it's going to take about 30 minutes probably for us to do this. So hopefully it'll be useful for you guys. So let me just put the presentation up on the screen. Hello? Okay, the microphone is not working. This is working? I have no idea.
Okay, let's just continue with the...
Let's just continue like this. Okay, so as I was saying, we live in a multi-device world where people are engaged both with desktop computers, mobiles, tablets, everything. And apparently statistics show that 90% of consumers start their activity on one device and finish it on another. So this should already tell you how important it is to actually engage in tracking cross-device conversions. There's an old saying that from Kaiser Wilhelm, however you pronounce it, that he believed that the horse is the best thing out there and the automobile is only a temporary occurrence. And there's a lot of people out there at the moment who say that, this mobile and tablet revolution is also temporary and that desktop will prevail. But as many of us know, and we can see that this is not the way it turned out for cars, and it will probably be the same for mobiles as well. So it's going to change the world, and it's already changing the world. Probably many of you also don't think that this is the case for Baltics, but if you actually look at statistics, this is the average for all three countries. We can see that 60% of people use more than 2 connected devices. You see that even 13% of people have more than 5 devices. 14% have more than 4 devices. Now, this is a crazy amount of devices. I can't imagine what these people are doing, what kind of devices they're using, but this is like real data, and this is highly significant for advertisers, because if you try to track a conversion over 4 or 5 different devices, then it's a very tricky task to do, but it's also very important to capture all these people to actually measure the outcome of your advertising. This slide shows us in which parts of the purchase process did people use a smartphone. So smartphone is our main focus, in these device trackings, because mobile is growing so fast. And if we actually look at Baltic data again, we see that it's used in a lot of different processes. It's looked for early inspiration, you compared choices, you actually sought advice online, and you prepared for immediate offline purchase on a mobile. So this statistics is crazy good, because it shows you how important mobile is already in the Baltics and how important it is in the cross-device conversion path. So if you do cross-device conversion tracking, it gives you actually real insight into how much value advertising is bringing you. So for example, here we have advertisers saying, that their mobile display campaign generated 40 conversions, but it actually also drove 80 conversions on another device. So that's a huge difference. If you think about it, if you compare 40 conversions, if you show your customer that, their advertising got 40 conversions versus 120, that is a huge difference. That could differentiate the person in believing in digital advertising or not. And if you don't do this, it can provide false negative signals. So the customer and you yourself might be, it's not performing as well as I thought it would be. I don't have a mobile optimized site or an app, so everything like this is unnecessary. I don't need to do this. I don't know what role mobile is playing. I don't want to do this. And usually this comes from two things, lack of insights and lack of technology. If we fix both of these things, we can make it a very easy, convenient process for you to actually track these conversions and put value on them. And luckily, Google has the tools to do so. So I'm going to focus on the tools that AdWords provides, and then Eustace was going to talk about how you can do it with analytics. So for AdWords, it's all about the ease of use. So you don't need to implement anything beyond a simple conversion tracking. If you have conversion tracking implemented throughout your different sites, both mobile and desktop sites, this is already the first step to getting the critical information. And the whole point of this is to give you a fuller view of the performance across all your campaigns, especially mobile campaigns, and then insights into how to invest more efficiently, whether you should put more of your budget towards mobile campaigns or not. So this is where the information comes as an important part. So how do they work? So what Google and AdWords does is it takes a sample of cross-device conversions. So if you have cross-device conversions, which is usually people that are signed into Google properties on multiple devices, then we can track it very easily. And we take that sample and we estimate similar behavior for non-signed in users. So this is a very techy process. It involves algorithms and a lot of estimations. But Google only surfaces this data when it's 95% confident. So you should really trust these numbers because we apply the highest standards. We don't want to fool anyone into thinking that these numbers that are provided in AdWords for cross-device conversions are made up. They actually have appeared as conversions, and we don't publish any numbers on AdWords just because we can. And this is, of course, a long-term strategy because we want to expand visibility into all conversions and all devices, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to measure how effective your advertising is across all devices, and we want this data to be as accurate as possible. So let's have a look at an example of how we actually account for these two conversion values. On the left side, you can see an AdWords campaign measurement today. So they have online orders, they have calls, and they have mobile app installs. So they credit 495,000 of value to AdWords through conversions. Now, if we actually look at cross-device orders as well, which previously wasn't assigned, we can see that actually 3,000 orders at the value of $30 a piece came from cross-device, which weren't tracked before. So now we can assign 580,000 of value to AdWords, which is a 20% increase. So this should be quite useful for the advertiser to see how much value actually AdWords brought. And perhaps some of you are thinking why we should give Google credit for these conversions. Are we just trying to prove that, or are we just trying to make up these just to prove that our advertising is worth it? But that's not the case, because these conversions are happening before and were happening before and are still happening, but they were just not associated with the ad click because of technology has evolved as well. So we now have better methods of tracking these people, and we have a higher confidence that these conversions actually happened because of an ad click on Google. And of course, this is just one of many solutions. You shouldn't rely on only cross-device conversions, because obviously there are different types of. There's also online to offline conversions. There's multi-channel conversions. There's inter-channel conversions. So you should just look at this as an extra tool you can use. But this is just one of the many tools that you should use, and a very important one at that. So this is the last ad click model, which prevails in the conversion path. So if we look, for example, if both search and display ad clicks get a conversion, which one gets the credit? So here we see a person that went on mobile display. He clicked on the ad, after which he did a mobile search. He clicked on the mobile search ad, and finally he went on desktop, did an organic search, and then this conversion happened. So this is an example of cross-device conversions, and you can see that estimated cross-device and conversion goes for search. And we can go through another example. For example, John goes to google.com, so he's searching for shoes. Okay, he goes through the organic results for fancy shoes. Later that day, he actually does some research on his Android tablet. He clicks on the display ad, browses through the collection, and the next week, he goes on his laptop, goes directly to fancyshoes.com, and actually buys the pair of shoes. So in this process, the conversion would be contributed to the tablet display, which was the last click before he actually went organically on the site. You can find all of this information and all of these conversions in the interface of AdWords as we speak. So one of these columns is added manually, and one of these is added automatically. So there are estimated cross-device conversions and estimated total conversions. So the estimated cross-device conversions is the one that you have to add manually. And you can see that you can see some numbers here, how much these estimated cross-device conversions make up of the total conversions. And if you look at cross-device conversions, that column should actually tell you then the full value of mobile. You know, how many people moved from mobile to desktop, mobile to tablet, mobile to mobile. And the final column, which is the total conversions, of course, shows the full value of AdWords. In it, cross-device, phone calls, app installs, store visits, whatever you want to measure. So it's a very simple process. It doesn't require a lot of knowledge or effort. The only thing that you really need to do is to make sure that you have conversion tracking installed correctly in all of your sites. And the rest of the information will be available in AdWords, and hopefully you'll make good use of it. So now my colleague Justus is going to tell you about how to do a similar thing in analytics.
Thank you, Oscar, for deep insights on the cross-device conversion tracking using AdWords. Now let's deep dive into analytics and how we can actually measure cross-device conversions there. So analytics does provide you a lot of different tools for tracking data. And in terms of cross-device conversions, the user ID view function is probably the best one to see how people act and how people behave on different devices while navigating for your in your e-commerce shops, websites, etc. So there are two things to have in mind when thinking about user ID view. First of all, it should be an experience with a log-in functionality, let's say a shopping club, an e-commerce website where you have to log in, or some other platform. The second thing to remember is that it's especially relevant for people for advertisers who have different types of assets, let's say regular websites, mobile websites, apps, etc. And then these advertisers can then track the activity in terms of different devices and platforms used. So the main concept is quite simple. The main concept is of user ID. You do have, as I mentioned before, you do have to have login functionality, and each logged in user is assigned a unique ID, which allows analytics to distinguish the user. Let's take an example of user number 1. By analytics, he was assigned an ID of 111, and at first he went to the mobile application. Then the same person went on the website using his laptop or a desktop computer. In this case, if there was no user ID installed, analytics would consider it as two different users. However, user ID view allows to link these sessions together and basically allows to track and think of the user as having a continuous activity on your website. It doesn't matter that he was using a mobile device at first and then the laptop. It just tracks the whole behavior as one experience. There are 4 things to have in mind when setting up user ID view. The first one is easy. You have to go on analytics, you have to go to your property settings, and under tracking info, you have to find the user ID functionality and just follow the steps there. Second of all, you do have to update your site's privacy policy because you have to inform the clients that the information is being tracked. And second of all, you have to make sure that the user ID, unique user IDs that you associate the users with are not associated with any personal identifiable information of these users. The third step is probably the trickiest because you do have to have some developing skills because you need to adjust the tracking code in order to account for the user ID view which is set up on the website. And then after making these changes to the to your analytics tag, you have to put the tag on all pages of your website. The fourth one is something that advertisers sometimes might not consider, and it's setting up the user ID in such a way that it does not actually track it excludes basically people who are not logged in, so that there are no data discrepancies in this case. Let's now look at different reports that the user ID might give you. The first one is user ID coverage report. It's a simple report. It basically gives you information about two categories of users: the ones that are signed in, the ones that are being actually tracked by the user ID view, and the ones that are navigated on the platform or on your website without being logged in. And this tool gives you a chance to compare the number of visits, the number of users, the number of transactions, etc., based on these two segments of customers. The second report is the device path report. What it does, it gives you different types of journeys that the customers might be experiencing on their way to purchasing a product. Let's look at some of the examples. For instance, the first row, where it says desktop, it means that 3.2 million users were actually using either desktop computers or laptops while navigating on your website. The second row shows that at first, these people logged in through their desktop computers, did some kind of an action, then they went back to your website using mobile device, and then they got back to the website using the desktop again. And this breakdown of different paths to conversions can give you a really useful tool in understanding which paths are the best ones which lead to conversions, and then you can design your AdWords and advertising strategies accordingly. The third report that is generated by the user ID view is the device overlap report. It's basically a Venn diagram which shows what are the proportions of the devices used and how they interact with each other. Looking at the image on the slide, we see that the majority of the visitors, they use only desktop. In the areas where you see interactions with other devices, let's say mobile or tablet, you see what's the percentage of people who use a combination of desktop or tablet, desktop or mobile, mobile or tablet, or all three combinations, all three devices. And then in that way, you can also understand what devices do your users prefer, which devices lead to conversions, and which device combinations lead to transactions and conversions. And the last report is the acquisition device report, which basically gives you two things. First of all, it shows you which device was used to acquire the customer. Was it desktop, tablet, or mobile? And it compares two things. If we look at the columns, we see a column named revenue from originating device. This column basically gives you information on how much revenue and how many conversions were confirmed using the device through which the user was acquired. The column on the right-hand side of this column, which is called revenue from other devices, shows you how much revenue was generated by other devices rather than the one through which the user was acquired. And in this case as well, you see how much revenue can be attributed to direct conversions, to direct acquisition conversions, and how many of those to indirect. And this allows you multiple ways to design your advertising strategies to capture all this revenue and see what actually contributes to successful results of your campaigns. So this is it about the analytics, and now let's look at the recommended practices for cross-device tracking. So the first one is related with tagging. We do recommend using the same tag for desktop, for regular websites, for mobile websites, and for applications. In this way, you know that the tag accounts for the same conversion, and basically you don't have too much discrepancies in terms of data. Whereas if you use different tags and different tagging methods, you might have quite a few discrepancies because the conversions might be different, they might be accounted in a different way, etc. So always try to use the same tagging. The second tip is avoid using conditional firing on your tags. This means that you should think and you should capture all the activity that is generated by the users on your website. And basically, conditional firing, it helps you to filter some of the users, filter some of the pages, and we do not recommend doing this because then you might lose the full picture of what the cross-device tracking brings to you. So again, if you can, try to avoid conditional firing so that you capture the full view of cross-device activity on your website and other platforms. The third tip is using and considering longer conversion windows, because naturally, conversions on multiple devices take up more time. So in order to capture the full view and full activity, we do recommend extending the conversion window. Let's say if now if you don't use cross-device tracking and you have a 30-day window, increase it to 45 days so that you can capture all the conversions that are done using different devices. Now let's look at the insights that can be generated through the cross-device conversion tracking. So first of all, we recommend using cross-device tracking at the campaign level, which brings basically two things. First of all, it gives you a broader picture, and it helps you capture the full movement of customers that can come through different acquisition channels. Second of all, it gives you much more data points. Let's look at this example. We see that there are two campaigns. One of them has a lot of conversions, and the other one has, let's say, little or few conversions. Even though in the campaign, which is called North Carolina, there might have been some cross-device activity, the case was that there was only a few data points with cross-device conversion, and basically the system could not capture the full cross-device movement, and it doesn't provide you information. So if you can, do use cross-device conversion tracking at a very, very broad segment so that you capture the full activity. Another tip is basically understanding which devices generate what type of conversion tracking. Let's again look at the example. We see that the cross-device conversions in this example are split by the device, by computer, mobile device, and tablet. And we see how many each of these devices contribute to cross-device conversion. So in this case, you can calculate what percentage of total conversions does each device bring you, and then you can see which devices actually work best for you when it comes to cross-device tracking. And then accordingly, you can generate and you can adjust your advertising strategies based on these numbers. Let's say if you see that mobile devices are the best performing in terms of cross-device conversions, just put more emphasis on mobile devices when designing the strategy. The next tip, which is extremely important, is basically aligning ads with what some users might do on the device that the ad is shown in. Let's take an example. If you're using mobile advertising, do think of what people might be doing at the moment when they are scrolling in their mobile phone. Maybe they're on the move and they don't have too much time. And basically, based on that, try to adjust the ad text and of course, the campaign settings so that you capture the full activity of what the people actually are doing at the moment. Let's say if you're focusing on mobile advertising strategy, do use call extensions, do use call-only campaigns so that people can instantly call you, and basically try to align the strategy for each step in your customer acquisition journey and in their purchasing journey. The last tip is, in order to track the cross-device conversions, is to design apps, websites, mobile websites, in order to facilitate cross-device actions, make it user-friendly. Let's say, imagine that someone starts purchasing a product on your e-commerce shop using a laptop or a mobile device. Let's take mobile device first. They might not be able to finish the purchase at that particular moment. Do put an auto-saving feature on your website so that the customer can resume purchasing when he gets back to the laptop. Do put extensions to social media so that the customer can be informed or they might receive a notification on their email address. So basically try to inform and remind the customer that he has started a purchasing journey and that he can finish it on any device that he wants to, basically. So making it consumer friendly and easy is one of the key features in terms of cross-device activity and success using advertising with different platforms. So a quick summary: enable the same conversion tracking on all the platforms that you might have. Use AdWords tag to register all conversions, and don't use conditional firing of tags. Do use cross-account conversion if you might have several accounts that are related to the same market. And then please pay attention to the conversion window that you're using so that you have enough time to capture all the conversions that might come from cross-device activity. Now it's your turn to show us what you know about mobile. So again, we would like to remind you that we have several competitions running at the moment. So the first one is Mobile Champion within your agency. And the prizes for that are pretty big, because a person from each Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia who gets the best score on mobile certification exam gets a new Google Nexus 6P phone, which is pretty huge, I'd say. Then we also have the competition for mobile case studies. So you only have to prepare one slide of your agency and show us a mobile success story that you might have had. And each agency who submits the slide will get a prize. And then we will still be continuing the mobile webinar series. So we have the third webinar from the series, which is coming up next week on Monday, 1600 hours Baltics time. And it will be related with holiday season. So a really exciting occasion, because the holiday season is approaching really fast, and we think we'll have pretty nice stats and strategies which are related to the Christmas season. So please join us in and let's have really successful Christmas campaigns. And of course, we'd like to remind you that we can help you with anything that's related with AdWords and analytics. So please reach out to us. We have different phones for Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So we're waiting for your calls, and we hope that we can help you implement the strategies that you might be looking forward to achieving. So that would be it for today.
Thanks a lot for all of you joining in. I just checked, still no questions from your side, which is a pity. We're hoping for a few, but
they can always ask. You can always ask questions on the YouTube, because the video will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. So if there's anything, let us know, and let's have a discussion on cross-device conversion tracking.
Yes, so we wish you best of luck in implementing this and pitching this to your clients. Hope it was useful, and we'll see you again next week.
See you next week.
Take care.
Goodbye.